Now welcome to another edition of Battle of the Heroes and Villains, where this time we'll be taking a look at the results of the poll for Admiral Ackbar. We'll then be comparing those results to all the other characters we've done thus far, before I then read and respond to some of your comments. But before any and all that, you can already head down to nominate and or vote for which character we'll do next. Just respond to my pinned comment with a name, or vote with a thumbs up if the character you'd like to see is already listed. Whatever single comment gets the most votes in the next 24 hours or so will be the winner and the character we do next. Alright, and now on to the results for Admiral Ackbar, where we'll see that 36% of voters thought this was an A tier character, 43% then went with a B, 17% then thought he was a C, which left 2% to give him a D, and a final 2% to give him an F. And so when we do all the math here and consider A score of 5 and F a score of 1, Ackbar ends up with an average score of 4.09, which means he lands in 21st place overall, just ahead of Lando and just behind Holdo. And as much as I do like Holdo, I could see this maybe being flipped around with Lando ahead of Ackbar and Holdo just behind those two. But I guess it is what it is, and to begin to figure out why Admiral Ackbar finished where he did, let's now get to your comments. But not before once again just taking a moment to say thank you to everyone who votes, comments, and watches these or any of my videos. It is all greatly appreciated. Also a big thank you to everyone who supports this channel over on Patreon. And so now let's kick it off as we always do with the top rated comment, which this time came to us from D-Alon, who said, "Absolute legend. In EU he had a chance to show his brilliance, but even in Return of the Jedi he is unforgettable. Disney should pay for the crimes against this character." And I kind of figured going into this poll for Admiral Ackbar, that there were going to be quite a few comments saying or asking why people were voting him so high or why they were giving him an A, considering all he does is say a couple lines in one film, albeit one of those lines being one of the most famous or classic or well-known lines in the history of Star Wars.
It's a trap!
And though, yes, there were quite a few comments that questioned that, or even said they gave him an A literally just for that line, which is fine, I suppose. I always say you can rate these characters, or your criteria can be whatever you want it to be. But most of those that did rate him high did so because there is actually a lot more to the character, or to his story, than just what we see of him in Return of the Jedi. He is a fan favorite for more than just that one line, or the critical role he plays during the Battle of Endor. In fact, his life is pretty much just kind of constant war, starting with the Separatist invasion of his homeworld during the Clone Wars, leading up to and then through the Galactic Civil War against the Empire. And then even after that, he becomes the Supreme Commander of the New Republic Defense Force. And for years, he fights battle after battle against one threat after another, before finally retiring, for a little while anyway, only to come out of retirement during the Yuuzhan Vong War to, fittingly enough for him, I think, he plans a trap for the Vong that basically turns the tide of the war. But then, sadly enough, he actually ends up dying of old age and poor health before the final victory over the Vong is achieved. And then after his death, there is a large ceremony held both on Coruscant and then on Mon Calamari, his homeworld, for the guy who devoted his whole life to the good fight, to the war of trying to protect or safeguard or liberate the galaxy. Even in the new canon, though we don't know as much about him there, he comes out of retirement at the behest of Leia to help the Resistance fight against the First Order, which then brings us to this comment from Media Motifs, who said, "One thing's for sure, it's absolutely disgraceful how casually they killed him off in The Last Jedi." There's also then this comment from Obsidian Monolith, who said, "He was an important figure in the Rebel Alliance military, and I'd imagine he would have been an important leader in the New Republic. Too bad Disney disrespected his legacy and blew him up so Admiral Holdo could take over." And I do think it's pretty clear from the way he was treated or handled in The Last Jedi that those who made that film didn't know about or care about his vast legacy in Legends. To them, he was also that guy or character who said that thing in Return of the Jedi that everybody always quotes, because he's pretty much just literally tossed away without any sort of fanfare and barely even mentioned after his death. And as pointed out by Obsidian Monolith, it's done simply for the sake of bringing in a new character, for bringing in Admiral Holdo, who is, according to our list, the worst character in Star Wars, at least of those we have rated or ranked or done videos on. And she's brought in to have this kind of subplot with Poe where she doesn't want to trust him with anything because he's a hothead or just a pilot who just blows stuff up. Even though he was or is Leia's most trusted pilot, the one who she sent to retrieve the map to her brother, or the map to Luke at the start of The Force Awakens, and the one who led the attack that blew up Starkiller Base like the day before this story is happening. And the goal of this subplot is going to be to teach Poe, or for him to learn how to be a better leader by learning from someone who trusts their instincts, like he's already been shown to do, but that doesn't want to share her plan with pretty much anyone for the sake of not sharing the plan. Instead of just telling everyone what it is, she tells them to have hope, essentially. Which, sure, maybe sometimes that's fine out of a leader to ask your subordinates to have faith in you or to trust your decisions. But when you're down to the last man or the last 300 members of the Resistance, maybe it's a good idea to tell everyone the plan, or to see if anyone else has a better plan or could maybe add to your plan. I don't know, survival seems pretty important here. I might want to, discuss the situation with my subordinates. But anyway, I'm all for new characters being brought into Star Wars, of course. But in this case, I think they could have and should have just used Admiral Ackbar. They could have had Poe actually working with him to formulate a plan and then learning a thing or two about leadership from him directly, from a character whose entire life has been defined by war. And Ackbar's lifetime of fighting could have been subtly referenced a time or two here and there about how he fought in the Clone Wars too. You obviously aren't going to focus the whole movie on him, or even a good chunk of it, but even a few lines here and there could really tell the audience who doesn't know that Ackbar has been fighting for basically 60 years at this point. You could then even have it where Ackbar could say he understands Poe's decision at the start of the film, the one that got so many of his pilots killed, even if Leia doesn't get it, that he's made hard choices like that along the way too, not that Leia, of course, hasn't, but that these decisions haunt him even to this day. And then whatever the plan ends up being, it doesn't have to be quite the same as we see in the movie. It can be more or less Ackbar's plan, but it ends up failing. Poe then offers to be the one who sacrifices himself to save the Resistance, kind of like he asked his pilots to do earlier in the film. But Ackbar says no, sometimes being a leader means being the one who has to give all, and that maybe it's time for Poe to finally lead, that he's ready, that he understands how hard it is to be a leader, he understands both sides. And the last thing Ackbar can even say to Poe after, again, having fought his entire life, is to ask him to find a way to finally bring this fight to an end once and for all, or for as long as he can before he's called to action again, because there will always be another fight. That's just a sad reality. I don't know, that's just a kind of rough idea off the top of my head, but it honors an old, beloved character and can essentially teach the same thing to Poe that he already learns in the film anyway, but without him, or turning him into a kind of hothead bad guy for no reason, which just doesn't align with what he was like the day before in the story, in the previous film, in The Force Awakens, when he is the most trusted pilot Leia has. Alright, let's now move on to this comment from Andrew Ace, who said, I'm actually currently rewatching the Mon Calamari arc in the Clone Wars. It makes me realize that Ackbar has been fighting for decades now. He fought the Separatists, he fought the Empire, he fought the First Order. He's been fighting for freedom longer than basically anyone. He has my respect, B. Alright, another comment then comes to us from Inspector Who Reacts, who said, when I think of Ackbar, one moment that stuck out to me even as a kid was when the Super Star Destroyer, I'm assuming crashed into the Death Star he means here, and Ackbar has this moment. I'm still uncertain what he was feeling there. Utter shock, sorrow, relief. It's crazy how much of a human-like emotion came from that mask. I'm glad Ackbar became more popular in other media to build his character, and he certainly deserved a better death than what he got. And I'm glad someone brought this scene or moment up because it's also one of my favorites from that film. There is just so much going on in that expression and that reaction, even though it's essentially a kind of a rubber mask or a guy in a rubber mask. And if I had to guess, there's so many different emotions going on right there, from sorrow to relief. Plus, if you know the character from Legends, if you know the long history of war or fighting in wars that he's been given since that scene was obviously first filmed, you can now put in there this type of weight being lifted from his shoulders, albeit temporarily, that after all these long years of fighting, victory is finally his, or well within the grasp of the rebellion. His life isn't, or hasn't just been fighting in vain. It has actually amounted to something. It's amounted in bringing freedom back to the galaxy. But at the same time, you almost get this sense, because a pilot is just given their life to do this, that he's probably thinking about all the lives that have been lost along the way. Again, it is a fantastic moment, and it's amazing to think that this is just a guy in a rubber mask, yet you can feel so much with it. Just a powerful scene that I've always, even as a kid, like Inspector Who Reacts said, that I've appreciated and enjoyed. Okay, and moving on now, we have this comment from Peterson ZF, who said, "He had a meme before memes were memes. He's an absolute legendary character that will always be remembered fondly." Also here we have a comment from Rookie64, who said, "A background character that left such an impact with fans there were Robot Chicken sketches dedicated to him. B, only because he was sadly underdeveloped in subsequent films. Looking at you, The Last Jedi." And yeah, he is kind of the original meme, or one of the original memes before memes were even memes. And the Admiral Ackbar cereal sketch in Robot Chicken is absolutely amazing. It may be my favorite skit from all of Robot Chicken, which is saying something because I am a fan of that show. A lot of stuff, a lot of nostalgia stuff from the 80s always in there with Seth Green and company. But anyway, it is fantastic. And if you've never seen it before, do yourself a favor, and after you watch this video, look it up on YouTube, check it out, you won't regret it. Alright, and now let's get to a few final comments before wrapping this one up. And we're going to start with one of those that tended to be just a little too long to read in the video, but you are free to pause it and read it now. And I'd like to give the shout out to the person who really puts the time in a comment, like Railroad Tie and the Golden Jukebox did here. So again, if you want to pause and read, that's great. If not, let's move to the next comment, which comes to us from Michael Goodner, who said, "A great background character that delivered an iconic line and deserved more screen time and a heroic end to his story. Solid B, but could have been an A if the character had more opportunity to be fleshed out." There's also this one from Kutek Kirby, who said, "I guess he's okay. His voice is very memorable and his one line is iconic, but overall there's nothing special or bad about him. Just filled his role well, C+." Also, we have this one from King Shorty, who said, "Although in the films he's a minor character with one iconic line, seeing him in the Clone Wars was amazing, and it gives him some backstory and explains why he's capable of being a military leader for the rebellion. Higher end B." We then move on to this comment from Bronze, who said, "A perfect minor character, not overbearing to the story, but with enough identity and uniqueness to stand out long after their 5 minutes of screen time." Then there's this one from P. Grat, who said, "It's a trap is my notification sound." And finally, we have this comment from Star Wars News and Memes, who said, "A minor but likable enough character in the original trilogy, who grew well in the expanded universe, even getting a small arc and plenty of page time in the Thrawn trilogy. The fact that people were so upset by his death in The Last Jedi shows how much people were attached to him. I will always associate him with his classic line, 'It's a trap, B.'" Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think of Admiral Ackbar, or tell me what you think of what I or anyone else had to say about him here in this video. Or you can always feel free to nominate and or vote for which character we'll do next. Either way, leave your comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars, and until next time, thanks for watching.